Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Kyle Hamer, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Asite. Asite is the global leading data platform for the built environment. We help organizations automate, collaborate, and drive control across their different project teams. Today, we're presenting Simplifying Construction Project Management with a focus on project controls, presented by Alan Drum. In today's session, Alan will demonstrate how Asite's built-in project controls can increase visibility, reduce your risks, and deliver predictable outcomes. Rest assured, all the information related to project execution, including operations, safety, and quality, can be managed much more efficiently. For those of you who don't know Alan, you're in for a treat. He is the Vice President of Solution Engineering at Asite and no stranger to technology, construction, or the built environment. Alan helps organizations just like yours understand how to get the most out of their technology. And for the last 23 years, he's built a reputation for helping construction, architectural, and owner-operator companies solve their most complex challenges using technology and giants like IFS, AccuBuild, Viewpoint Construction, and Maxwell Systems. Just a few items of housekeeping before we get started. If you have questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer them as we go. At the end of today's session, we will have a short survey, and we would greatly appreciate you taking a moment to let us know how we did and other things that you would like to see. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Alan. Alan, take us away.
Great. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for being here today with us to cover Asite project controls. As we start out today, I wanted to just kind of lay out a brief agenda. We'll talk a little bit about Asite for those of you that may be new to Asite. Of course, we've been around for quite some time, but I'll give a brief introduction. And then we'll go through and kind of give an overview of Asite project workflow. It's a comprehensive solution. We'll be covering just a small component of it today, but I'll give you a brief introduction. And then we'll dive right into the product and spend a little bit of time just orienting those of you that haven't seen the product before, a little bit about how we navigate through Asite, how users get relevant information on some of their dashboards, particularly as it relates to the topic today, which is project controls. And then we'll go right down into the detail on several different examples of managing project controls. You know, the typical RFIs, daily field reports, meeting minutes, all of the different components that make up the ability to control the information being collected and managed on a project. And then we'll talk specifically about how some of those document types can be managed and really conformed or configured to your requirements. And we'll go through that, and then we'll open it up at the end for questions as Kyle had outlined. So with that, when we introduce Asite, for those of you that have not heard of Asite previously, Asite has been in the business of helping automate business processes for 23 years. We're headquartered in London. We have offices here in North America, in New York, Houston, and then we have regional offices all around the globe. But really, Asite is about getting the right information, the key information for projects, really to the right people at the right time for the appropriate actions. And again, our topic today is project controls. So just a small subset of the information that's relative to managing a project. And you'll see how the platform really does help our users increase visibility, increase and improve collaboration, and provide your teams, whether those are internal or external constituents, provide better efficiencies as they manage their projects. And then all of that, of course, is on one platform where all the data is stored together. As we look at, just a brief review of some of Asite's global client base, again, just reiterating the fact that we've been here for a long time, been doing it for a long time, relatively new to the North American space, but of course, some large projects that Asite's been involved with some very large global clients. As we look across to the product, Asite project workflow is really designed around a common data environment, which we covered in our last topic. So for those that may not have seen our presentation last time, we covered a lot about the common data environment and really what I refer to as electronic assets and how we manage those, whether it be in the engineering processes, drawings, submittals, things of that nature. And then we talked about those certainly from the standpoint of how they applied to the platform itself and the different components. Today, we're going to focus on the project controls. So as we look at the project workflow configuration within Asite, again, as I mentioned, we'll cover a little bit about analytics and dashboards. We'll speak directly to the project control forms and the different types that are available, out of the box and our best practice templates. And then we'll talk about how those can be modified or configured, to individual organizations, whether they have specific needs at the project level, maybe, for a specific project, may have needs that are specific to an owner or client requirements. And we do that through our app builder. And I'll take us through that briefly so that you can understand the capabilities within Asite to configure and really take the solution and conform it to your business requirements. And then, of course, all the way along, of course, these forms and documents and project controls are all about getting the right information to the right people at the right time, recording the information and the things that are happening in the field and getting those to the back office or to the project team, whether it be internal or external. So as we go through that, we'll start and just get right into the demo. I think it'll make a lot of sense as we get right into it. So without further ado, this is Asite. So users are presented when they log into Asite. This is a 100% SaaS-based, cloud-based, browser-based solution where I am actually now logged in to the product and looking at one of many dashboards. And so as we look at this, I'll just turn off my bookmarks bar there. What you're looking at across the top here is really the different components of the solution. Again, last time we talked a lot about electronic assets and files. We had shortcuts to our drawings, to our specs, to our submittal items, and we were tracking the individual tasks that were associated with those. We talked a little bit about our capabilities even on 3D BIM models and utilizing the platform again for collaboration. Today, we'll focus specifically on the forms area or the project controls. And again, I've identified several examples here that we'll walk through today, but users then can use the dashboards really to not only give them quick access and navigation to the things that they use most frequently, but they can also use them to have key performance indicators. So as you look here, obviously I have 28 outstanding overdue tasks related to RFIs, got quite a few in the queue here. And then you can see the different project control types that I've built into my query as an example to be able to manage that particular information. We also, submittals kind of, span the realm of not only an electronic asset and the documents that we're collecting, managing, and approving, but often they're pulled together in a submittal package, and that package on Asite can be an actual form that relates the multiple documents together, moves it through a defined workflow, either downstream or upstream, whether I'm dealing with the subcontractors or dealing upstream with engineers, architects, and owners, whatever the case may be. And so as we look at this, as we drill down just to get right into it, the first thing that you'll note is that the user is presented directly to the folder where the RFIs live in this particular project. One thing that I mentioned last time with Asite is that it is able to manage and view multiple projects at one time. So we refer to this really as being able to group projects in a portfolio view or a selected view. So users can select individual projects. They can select a group of projects as I've done here. And again, why this is relevant. So I'm here at the RFI level, looking at a log of the RFIs for this project. If I wanted to look across all the project forms for this project, I could just simply go up a level and see every single document that's associated with this particular project. The reason that's important, I'm not going up and down through folders trying to find things. Oftentimes, there are times things do get misclassified or they get moved into a wrong folder, things of that nature. Just makes it easy to look and do searching across the many different documents that we're going to talk about today. So when we look at an RFI, just as a simple example, I have the ability to raise an RFI directly from the platform here. We also support a mobile application, which we won't get into in detail today due to the time constraints, but I will show a quick representation of it in mobile as we round out the demonstration today, just so that everyone can see what we can do on our mobile application, and it will be the topic of our next webinar. But as we look at creating a simple RFI as an example, We have the ability then to be presented with the actual form that's going to be created. So, I may have a question, right, regarding some, a door configuration or some other issue that we're dealing with in the field. And then I have the ability to select, as we've done here in kind of a best practice form, things like this is related to design coordination, what's the particular discipline that this applies to, what section or part of the specifications is this relating to, if relevant. And then being able to obviously record automatically the issue date. It's already put in a due date for me based on how I've configured this form. So our response is due really on the 24th. We set this as a high priority. Is this going to provide a cost impact? We really don't know. And will it affect the schedule? Maybe that's unknown at this point as well. And we'll just say that maybe the door frame appears, to be in the wrong location. Whatever the case may be. And so you get the idea that the user then will create this that could provide a suggested resolution. And then really they're going to distribute this. And our distribution can be automated through our workflows. It can be done manually as I'm doing here, or it can be set up to distribution groups that are set specifically based on the configuration within the project. But when I do this, what I'm actually going to do is identify that I want to send this to Alan Drum. I need him to respond in 2 days. That's the default. And I'm also going to instantly notify that there's an RFI out here. And so when I send this out, all of this is going to be automatically created and logged. And then you can see here the next logical number 55, has been logged within the RFI log here within Asite. Couple of things about the log view that you're seeing here. All of the data that was available in the RFI form is actually available as a column on the log view. So if you can imagine, things like, is this going to relate to a specific spec section? Is it going to relate? Is it going to have a schedule impact? Is it going to have a cost impact? All of those columns can be represented here in the log view. Most importantly, I can very quickly export a log view either with the current fields that are in the view or with all fields. So, I've worked with lots of contractors and different organizations over the years, right? As I'm managing the project, I'm going to a project meeting. I need all the open RFIs. I need all the open, items that are from the prior meeting minutes. Maybe I need an open change order log. Just to manage in this log view exists and provides that quick ad hoc reporting for all the items that I'm collecting in terms of these project controls within Asite. So a couple different examples as we go through. The submittal package that I mentioned is another project control form type within Asite. As we look at a submittal form, just a little bit different orientation. In this one, obviously, we've set out a package. This one happens to be with the HVAC submittals. I've requested for 2 submittals. This one happens to be going downstream to the subcontractor, and I need the HVAC blower unit and the evaporator spec sheets. You'll notice here that this particular sub has already uploaded this document, the blower unit, and I've already approved it. However, we did pre-publish and put a placeholder in for the evaporator, which has now not been provided and is still open, and therefore this entire package is open. So behind these forms sits some smart workflows, some smart configurations about where and what information needs to go to whom within these types of workflows. Submittal just being one good example of that. One thing about this is as files or other forms are related to one another, you'll notice that I have quick hyperlinks to be able to get to those. So this is taking us as an example back to an electronic asset, in this case, the submittal that was provided for this particular unit directly from that submittal package. And again, this was more of the topic of our last meeting or webinar on electronic assets, but I think it is important to note that every piece of data on Asite, whether it be the drawings, documents, submittals, spec sheets, all the electronic assets are able to be incorporated within the forms as we go forward. So when we look at the ability to look at other types, I'll go into an example of a daily field report. In the daily field report, as you would expect, a different form type here, where now I've got a header, I've got a date, I'm recording weather conditions, maybe wind conditions. Did we lose any time on the project? You know, was there any work stoppage? Which visitors were on site? Did we have any inspectors, as an example? What equipment did we use for the day? Which of our direct employees were involved in the project, including how many hours did they work? What subcontractors were on the project, et cetera. And you could see, you know, if I had a safety issue, yes or no, I could record that and then require maybe a separate incident report to be filled out as a part of the project controls. So again, another great example of just a standard templated form that Asite provides, but that can also be modified by the user. Last one I want to show here is the incident, just to show a little bit different type of form, and that is one that is a little bit more health and safety related. If we were to create the form here, and I'll show an example we already did, this is one where, again, we're laying out sections of the reporting. So incident details, you know, what happened, who reported it, when did it happen, what was the category of the incident, and then, you know, any of the injury details. So this is a completed form. If we look at one, if we were going to create an incident, what you'll notice is some of the logic that I was mentioning as we were talking about these being smart forms. So, you know, this was maybe a minor injury. You'll notice that if it's a minor injury, a separate set of requirements open up to define that minor injury. You know, it may have been some property damage. And again, if it's a property damage, you know, what type of damage occurred? If we had witnesses, yes or no? Yes. Okay, who were they? So the system will prompt you for the appropriate actions to be completed based on the configuration of the form. So how do we get to the configuration of the forms, you say? And that's really part of one of the biggest strengths within Asite, from my perspective, having worked with project management systems over 23 years, and that is this configuration capability. So when we look at the configuration of what we call apps within Asite, we have a library template, as I mentioned, that can be provided. But if we go down to an RFI, you'll see that I've had a number of these pre-configured, maybe based on different requirements that are in my library. But in this particular case, for the RFI, I go into the definition and you'll see the ability to define things like, should this particular form be responded to? You know, I think of things like daily field reports. Maybe a response is not required, but maybe we do want, obviously, approval, move it through a workflow. It needs to be approved internally before it's sent maybe to the owner of the project, whatever the workflow or the requirements are for your organization. What are the tasks required? As we go through any of these forms, right, an RFI, it makes sense we want a response. What's our deadline for responding so that that's managed within the task management of Asite? Do we want a status to be assigned? Do we want to automatically distribute it, as I mentioned earlier? When we distribute this, do we want it mandatory or is it optional? Do we want users to be able to edit the document and forward it? Do we want to allow attachments? So I think about, obviously, the configuration of a daily field report, right? I'm going to do that from the field in the mobile. I probably do want pictures, right, of the work progress. In the case of an incident, property damage or injury, I probably want to document photos and attachments along with that as well. So all of these configurations can be managed within the definition of each particular form and each iteration of a form. So you can have multiple iterations, as I mentioned, depending on the use case or the need that may vary project to project, owner to owner, whatever the case may be. And so you notice some additional things, ability form statuses, what closes the form, again, some built-in workflow capabilities that even drive greater efficiencies in the configuration beyond the workflow configurations that I mentioned or reviewed in our last webinar for electronic assets. So with that, we'll go right into the definition of this particular form and go into what we call our app builder. This is an online built-in tool that is part of the base package of Asite. Every customer gets this tool, and it provides them the ability to take a template or to really author any document directly from scratch if you choose, and then build out the components for what you want to see on a particular form. So, you know, in the case of an RFI, I had an RFI title. We already had a reference, a request by, or RFI status. I want to add one more. So I'm going to add another drop down here, just drag and drop it into the user interface. I can move that around, obviously, on the screen to the right location where I want it. And then over here on the right-hand side, you'll see I have the ability to define it. And in my case, I want to relate this maybe to a CSI code that we're managing. Maybe that CSI code is part of our work breakdown structure, whatever those additional classification or attributes are that help you manage the information. Keeping in mind that everything that we add to a form in this manner becomes part of the actual database within Asite on the platform. And all of this data is then reportable. And again, as I showed previously, just in the ad hoc log view, available to be seen by the users. So as we look at a definition like CSI code, I could go here and say, okay, I'm going to build out static data that only exists in this form. I want to relate it to maybe some system data. Maybe that's data that we've collected on another form or within attributes that we've collected on our electronic assets. Or I want to link it to these custom attributes, which really custom attributes for us is a really specialized term that really means global user defined field, right? And so I've defined these already within this project workspace. And so now on this form, when I go to use it, I would now have the ability to select from a CSI code within the RFI. So you get the idea. I'm not here really to train you on how to implement the forms or the app builder tool, but just really to show you its really flexible capability to provide tremendous amount of configuration for our users so that they can collect the information that's important to them, that helps them manage the project on any given form within the Asite platform. So it's as simple as that. I just simply save it. I'm going to publish this. And when I publish this, what it means is the next time I go to create that specific form, an RFI in this case, that field would then be available to me within the view. And so we'll save this, come out of this, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about when we get into creating those forms. So if we go back to our dashboard, come back to our forms area here. Again, these were shortcuts. I can also raise an RFI. I failed to mention that. I can do it right from here. So now I'm going to raise that RFI and notice there's that CSI code field that I just added. And again, whatever it is, and this one obviously, is a different code than CSI, but you get the idea, and being able to select and group that information. So, and then as I mentioned before, being able to add files, drag and drop, these are all standard parts. I can associate documents or other forms. One of the things about associating other forms is that if I have an RFI, it may make sense that I want to relate it as I raise maybe a change order request, right? So now I'm raising a change order request and relate it back to an RFI, or maybe something was reported in a daily field report and it initiates an RFI. Again, that form to form, form to file relationship is something that Asite does very well in terms of managing the collective information. So with that, that's a number of examples that exist within Asite. The last one, I know we're going to run out of time here very quickly, and I want to leave some time for questions, really relates to our ability to do this work on a mobile device. And so what I wanted to show real quickly, and this is kind of a preview to what we'll do in our next webinar for those of you that I hope will join us. Now we're on our mobile app. And so those same forms that you were seeing earlier on the mobile view are now available here on the browser. And I'm actually running a real browser here directly from my iPad. So it's not an emulator. I'm doing this live. And so if I were to go into RFI and raise a new one, you would expect to see the exact same experience that we had in the web view. So all of this is available then for the users to complete that information directly in the field. The same is true with things like being able to create that incident report. So if I were going to record an incident report, all available and looks the same and acts the same as if we were doing this directly from the web browser. The last thing that I wanted to show here is we do have a little bit more specialized forms, and that is our ability to do things like punch lists or inspections. And so if I were to come into our quality area, and we would say that on the quality side, we're going to go out and do a specific inspection on a particular area within this project, I have the ability to define the areas within the project that I want to create a document for or a form, and then we just say create the form from the field, and then it will pull up automatically the form that I've associated with it. And this is just yet another different form that can be configured within Asite. And this is one that we call a checklist or configured to be an inspection. So now I'm doing kind of a mechanical inspection really before we start to close up the drywall in this particular project. Pass, fail. If it fails, I have the ability to put additional description. I have the ability to attach and select, either from a camera, the gallery, or documents that are stored on the iPad. And then most importantly, this ability to assign a task. So I can say, there's some follow-up required here on this. I can route this document to a particular user. I can notify Alan immediately of the problem. Anyway, it just shows the flexibility of yet another different form type or project control that is available within Asite. So with that, I want to wrap and just because of the time constraints that we had today, and go back and just recap what we covered today. So if we recall, we started out kind of with the dashboard view, and then as we went through some of the log views, right? So every single project control that I've defined and managed on the platform, RFI, meeting minutes, daily field report, incident reports, checklist, inspections, doesn't matter. They all have an individual log. They all can be numbered sequentially. They can all be exported, providing users great utility, in terms of visibility of what's outstanding, what status it's in, whose ball in court it's in, who's, if it's late or on time. All of those things come from the visibility that is given from the dashboard and the logs. We certainly covered the different project control types, specifically providing productivity around, collecting those RFIs, being able to manage daily field reports, handling meeting minutes, really any form type that you can imagine. Many of our customers have taken our core forms and then found, a number of different things that they want to automate that make it very quick and easy for them to record information in the field, including I had a customer recently just said, hey, I want a site visit for a customer. I want to record, went to their site, did a look around, everything looked good, no warranty issues, whatever the case may be. You can build any form you want in the Asite platform. And then finally, how do we do that? We do that through our app builder tool. Really gives, our customers complete control over the configuration that's required for each individual project. Certainly allows standardization across your organization as you desire for things that are repeated from project to project to give you those controls on the projects the way you expect them to be. And so with that, I hope you found in this short time today that the project controls and the project form area is just yet another way that Asite helps our customers, deliver assets in terms of the design, built, managing of those assets as they go forward for their customers. So with that, I'll open it up. I know we've got a couple of minutes left. I want to open it up for any questions. Really appreciate your time joining us today. If there are questions that we don't get to today, please feel free to email us. Be happy to respond to any questions that you may have. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Kyle.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Alan. It really was great. I mean, it's good to see the power of the system and pull back the covers a little bit to show us exactly how it works. We do have a few questions here that have come in, and I know we have just a couple of minutes left, so we'll get to the ones that we have. My first question that comes in, Alan says, it looks like the app builder has a lot of power, but I have custom forms, custom reports that are required for me by owners. Are you telling me that I can build those inside of App Builder and submit them through Asite, or would I still need to have my Excel outside of the system?
No, you absolutely can replicate those within Asite. That's part of what we frequently do as we engage with our prospective customers is help them, identify those forms, help them, configure those forms during implementation, and more importantly, teach you how to build those forms. There are situations that may have a little bit more complexity to them. Just know behind the scenes on those forms, we also have the ability to do some scripting that provides even more utility. You may have noticed for those on the call, It's an HTML backbone to what we're doing. So there is some coding capability that can be done. We do have development resources as well. So if there's something super complex that needs to be replicated, we can even help you develop those on the platform. So a lot of flexibility. I kind of look at that going from, kind of simple to very comprehensive, but it will cover all points in between.
Great, thanks for that. The follow-up question here looks like it says we're looking for templates. Do we have a standard box of templates or things for RFIs or forms that we build from, or is everything built from scratch?
We do provide the template forms, so we have an entire library. Actually, all the forms that I showed you today were really part of our template repertoire, if you will. All of those can be provided as standard formats, and then we can build on those. And again, they're fairly simple based on our best practice experience. But I've had customers. For example, I had an inspection once where a customer said, okay, I got an inspection form, but I need a serial number on every one of these forms because we're inspecting, in their case, they were inspecting a tank or an asset, and they needed to be able to report back to their owner the results of the inspection by serial number of the asset. Easily done, easily added. Those are the types of things that we can do. But yes, everything comes with kind of a baseline, if you will, and then can be expanded from there.
Fantastic. Well, that gets us to the end of our session today. There are a couple more questions, and we'll respond to those in line. But I want to thank everybody for taking time to be here this afternoon. Our next webinar will focus on the mobile app, as Alan highlighted, things that are happening in the field, and bring him the stuff from the job site to the office. We will have a short survey after the session today, so please do take a few minutes to fill that out. And we'll look forward to seeing you in 1 month on November 16th at 2 p.m. where we pick up we pick back up where we left off today. Thanks again, Alan. Thanks all for attending. We'll see you in a month.